All right. Good evening. Buenas noches. Guten Abend. Bienvenidos. Welcome to everyone, all ye who are faithfully congregated around this medium, whether it be in live form now or in future form, meaning it'll be recorded and no longer live. I have a very sophisticated way of explaining how things work in technology. People are obviously very fascinated at these little tutorials I do. I amaze myself. So tonight we are having actually this is Wednesday. We're not having a tertulia tomorrow. So I guess this is the second to last tertulia for this week. And I'm happy to have someone here who's usually on the other side of the table. So I get to experience this, and she'll get to experience this in this little dynamic, and also in live, colorful form. And there's going to be plenty of colors in this video, which I love it. And because she's usually more on the audio type format, so I'm excited about these things. I'm excited about experiencing kind of like new things and what they bring forward. So without any more rambling and talking and introing and la la la, I'll introduce my guest for tonight. So my guest for tonight, her name is Christy G, and she will tell us more about herself. So, let's see if the magical button works as it usually does. And it did. Welcome.
Hi.
Hello. Thank you for accepting this invite on a platform that's a little bit foreign to what you usually do.
Yes. Hi. I am pumped. I'm excited, and I've got my Red Bull to help me.
That says it all. Hopefully, I'll get a bit through teleportation. I'll get a little bit of that.
Yeah.
So I like starting talking here about our present context. Where we find ourselves at right now in these times of pandemia. And I would like to get to know, a little bit about what you were doing. I start with a bit of a three-layered question. What were you finding yourself doing at the beginning of the year? Pre-pandemic, I give it February, early March. What were you doing personally, professionally? And then the pandemic comes, and then it just twists and changes and backflips everything around.
Yeah.
And now it's been almost 9 months of this, I would say. Maybe I think we're at that 9-month period. And how has it been? So pre-pandemia, what were you doing? Pandemia comes, it hits. How did it affect everything you were doing? You've been navigating now for 9 months. And the last part of this question is, I would like to get some of your observations as far as maybe what you've seen in terms of society, in terms of us humans, what this COVID-19 has brought out of us. And I'm not talking about like fetishizing this phenomena, but observing what maybe lessons you've learned by yourself, and by looking at how it's affected other people, things that is brought out to the surface to a more undeniable realm. If you forget any of them, I'll try to remind you.
I'm like a squirrel, so you probably will have to remind me.
I love squirrels. They're so cute.
Me too. They're the best. Yeah, so a year ago, well, at the beginning of the year, we'll say, I was kind of newly in my podcast world, so I was like getting psyched about that. And I was actually a server part-time on the weekends. So I'd be slinging coffee and doing all that stuff because that kind of comes natural to me. I grew up in the restaurant business, and I love it. I know some people are like, heck no, I'd never do that job. I like it. I think it's fun. I can talk all day to people, and then they go away, and then they come back again. And yeah, and then when COVID happened, the restaurants went, and I haven't worked since March. So yeah, but the positive side is the podcasting world kind of opened up because sadly, a lot of these people can't tour. And so all these musicians I was trying to like get in contact with are like available now. And I'm like, oh, so I've made so many new friends, and it's been really weirdly motivational for me to like have to stay home and do stuff. And so it's been good. But I'm ready to be a normal society person again.
Have you ever been normal, a normal
No,
society person?
that's true. Not
So
normal.
is that a resolution you have that you've thought about in times of COVID?
Yes.
I
No, okay, so let's go back like about 5 or 6 years ago. I was very social, going to concerts, and then I just like didn't want to do anything for like five
yeah
years. I like didn't
yeah
do anything. I just was like a little squirrel. And
yeah.
and now I'm like, now I want to do all this stuff and I can't. So I'm pumped for when the world opens back up again and I can
I like that. I
be
like that you
be normal.
contextualize your answer because
Yeah.
I was like, is she talking about herself or is she talking about the new self that she's waiting to implement post
Yeah.
COVID? And what are some things that you perhaps have noticed, that this has thought, kind of brought up? I know you talked about the availability that some of your guests have had now and that affects them.
Yeah.
But in
Hmm.
terms of maybe on a more sociological realm as to things, during these 9 months there's been plenty of unrest because of COVID,
Yes.
but because
Hmm.
of many things that have been going on even
Hmm.
pre-COVID, like for example what Black Lives Matters have brought up
Hmm.
to the surface, which is nothing new, which is just
Right.
something is old history.
Right.
So in terms of kind of like those things that have been like the dew in the morning that have been kind of like it's just there, that the COVID perhaps has made it more tangible for us to see and to do something
Yes.
about. Are there some of those things that you might have noticed, might have reflected upon during these last 9 months?
Definitely the Black Lives Matter. Sadly, that wasn't something I had to think about a lot before.
Hmm.
Um, and like when it happened, I learned so much, and I'm thankful for that. And I just feel like, from what I've noticed, so many people are at home and media. There's like so much media,
I
so there's
love
like
it.
all this like coming at us, which can be great and like not good. Luckily, I like turned off my live Hulu. I'm like, I can't. If the news is there, I will watch it, and I'll just sit there all day and stress out. So turned off the live Hulu, and I just watch King of the Hill all day or something. And but I did notice that, and especially like the friends I've met were from that world, and I got to talk to them about it and stuff. I don't think I would have had a chance to get to meet people from that world before because everyone was so busy. And I got to use my platform. I had 2 episodes about Black Lives Matter where I interviewed 3 of my friends about it, and
Yeah.
it was awesome. And it's something. It was scary because where I live, it was kind of hardcore, like police cars on fire everywhere, and
In
luckily it
LA,
wasn't.
right?
Yeah, like I'm a block away from like where it was kind of wild.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I totally understood why, of
No,
course.
yeah, 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 yeah,
Um,
yeah.
but I come from a town of like 900 people in Texas. I was not prepared for our
You're a Texas girl.
city.
I happen to be in
Yeah,
Texas, so
you do.
I'm not a
My
Texas
mom,
boy though.
hi mom. She's over by Houston tonight, right now.
Where's your mom?
So she's in Cleveland.
In Cleveland, Ohio?
No, Texas.
Oh, Cleveland,
Up,
Texas.
yeah, it's like right outside of Houston. So
Saludos, Moa.
yeah, shout out. She's watching. I saw her on Facebook. Um, she figured it out.
Good, good, good. Number one
But
fan. That's good. That's good.
yeah,
So that's something we'll definitely talk about. The fact that you're from, this being from this demography in the South and kind of like your experience
yeah.
living in the West Coast. But yeah, go on. Like you've been having the opportunity to, for example, talk and converse with people. Like for example,
Hmm.
those who have been involved in Black Lives Matter. What did that kind of how significant was that for you in terms of learning or unlearning some things?
I it was eye opening because I there was so much I didn't know, and there were things that I would say jokingly, like not understanding like how it came out as a kid, or just like things that apparently people thought were funny that are not funny. And I was
Yeah,
like, oh my God, I can't believe I've been saying that. And like nothing like super, like
yeah, yeah.
I
But
wouldn't say
little
that word,
things.
but yeah,
Yeah,
just little things.
yeah.
And it was kind of like, I was like ashamed, but also that my friends that I spoke to were like, no, we understand. Like, why? Like, we understand, like, you weren't from this world and no one's ever spoke up and told you these things. And even them themselves, they're like, we've never spoke up and said anything. We just live with it. And I was like, oh my God, like that's harsh and hard. And so that was super important to me to learn that lesson. And I thought it was really fun. Not fun, but good.
No, learning is fun. Maybe sometimes it's
Yeah.
contemplative fun.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, language speaks, and how language, in studying pedagogy and studying education, we study linguistics a lot in language. And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes we approach language in terms of, kind of like the egg and the chicken. What came first,
Yeah.
language or us? And the thing is that, we made language and the language makes us.
Mm-hmm.
So how we speak and how we interact with one another, it is very significant,
Yes.
regardless of how trivializing we might want to make things. So that conversation that you referred to, learning and being aware of those things,
Mm-hmm.
I think it shouldn't be about like shaming. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
sure there's a sense of embarrassment, of course,
Yeah.
but there's a grace about it, especially when you have a
Right.
people that you have confidence with.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It was nice. I felt very like protected talking to them, like that I could have that conversation and it wasn't going to get like scary or judgy. So it was good. So
And
yeah.
that's what I try to generate with this space. And speaking about what COVID has brought up, I've
Mm-hmm.
been doing this since late March,
Mm.
and I mean, if I stop and think about, I am incredibly, like, exhaustingly blessed
Yeah.
to have this space and to have had the chance to talk to people. Now be talking to you. Every single person that's crossed this path has, I mean, at the very personal level, has affected me in a very personal
Mm-hmm.
level. And I really don't mean this as a cliche. I mean, every single story
Mm-hmm.
has found, and every single person has found a safe space here. And it's kind of like what
Yeah.
you're referencing. It's
Yeah.
a very different dynamic when you have a place when you kind of have to feel a little bit kind of like you're walking over eggshells and you're kind of like paranoid about a gotcha question that's going to come your way.
Yeah.
I don't want that here. I want a safe
Yeah.
space for everyone.
I love that. I love it.
And also it's a little bit of and it's not like I'm afraid of going around. Like, I mean, I've had here politicians from Puerto Rico, and I
Yeah.
asked some tough questions,
Yeah.
but it isn't like, like, I got you now. It is with grace. It is with grace, and I think I would like to be in that place and the other way around. So I try to foment
Mm-hmm.
that. Something I enjoy doing here is getting to know a little bit about my guest. So today is Christy G's turn. So if you could share three experiences, throughout your life that you
Okay.
reckon are experiences that have formed you, transformed you, unformed you, whatever, but that you can allocate meaning to them and you can remember
Mm-hmm.
them kind of like through the rear view mirror of life, and
Mm-hmm.
you think this, this, and that, whether it was specific incidents,
Mm-hmm.
season, but that you can remember them as, wow, this definitely had something to do with how I am now and how I value life now. So if you could share three of those,
Okay.
or if you don't get to three, it's fine. But that you can feel comfortable to share whatever you feel comfortable with sharing.
Okay. The first one that comes to my mind is more of a fun one. It was the fall of 1996, and I grew up in the church world, and I was a good little church girl, and so I didn't do the party scene or anything. And Friday night like football vibes in my little town. I didn't really like football, so the church would put on these after parties, and me and my first boyfriend at the time were hanging out at the after party before the party started, and he brought some VHS tapes that were from Tooth and Nail Records.
Mm,
You know who Tooth and Nail is,
of
right? Uh
course,
huh.
of
Uh huh.
course.
He popped those tapes in, and it was life changing. That's when I found MXPX, and I was like, "Oh, these are my people. I found them finally." And that is like a butterfly effect because I found that community in the reason I'm in LA is because like something happened one after another that got me here
From
from
96.
from 1996. So that was nuts. And I remember just feeling like very lost in my little cowboy town. And then one day it just clicked. And I was like, wow. this is amazing. And now, like in real life, like I interviewed Mike Carrera for my blog and had Tom on my podcast. And I got a Christmas card
Wow.
last year from Mike and his family. I'm like, the 15-year-old of me could see this. Couldn't believe
Yeah.
it.
It's
So
a
it's
Toys
been
R Us
fun.
experience.
Yeah.
You were, how old were you then? Like what, 15, 16?
I was 15. Yeah. Yep. It was the best time.
What
It was
bands were
so
in that
fun.
video that you remember?
Ooh, I remember Plank Guy was on there.
Mmm.
Driver
Like I was
8.
the one that had that song, the Goodbye song.
Yes, but that's like,
Goodbye. I love
yes,
that song.
that's a
The
good one.
elevator.
Yes,
Yeah.
but this is the earlier stuff with my friend Scott as the singer.
Yeah, yeah,
He's
that
a,
was way before that song, yeah.
yeah, and then there was Driver 8. Yeah, MXPX, Supertones, I believe they're on there. I still have
Wow.
the VHS tapes. They're in my living
Jesus.
room.
I'm trying to think 96. I didn't discover it until probably 1999 perhaps.
That's a good year.
When maybe that was toward, I think they were probably a little bit heavier at that
Mhm.
point maybe. I don't know if Living Sacrifice was there at that point,
Mhm.
or
Yeah.
and that's what lured me in,
Yeah.
the gory music for
Uh
some
huh.
reason. So then that definitely set you on a path. So
Yes.
any other experience that you might recall like that one or
Um,
different?
I definitely think growing up in the church world motivated me to make certain choices. I grew up like, okay, you've had Jay Baker on here. I feel like me and Jay have a very similar story. We
Yeah,
grew
yeah, we're
up
good
in a
friends.
certain,
Yeah,
yeah. Oh, I love Jay. Um, we grew up in not the same world, obviously, because his life is like bananas.
yeah, a little bit different.
Yeah, a little different. I mean, no one's making a movie about my family. Uh, they should though.
Soon,
It'd be awesome.
soon,
I'll write
soon.
it. But like I grew up in that world, and then when you get older, and you're like, some of the stuff I don't understand anymore. Does like and like it wasn't adding up. And I remember out here in LA, like reaching out to a pastor out here, and it was a Hillsong church type situation.
I've
And
been there. I've been there.
yes, and I reached out to him, and instead of him answering, he passed it off to somebody else in the church, and it was like a lot of really personal information. And I was like, "You just gave this to a stranger." So
When
like,
you
and I,
approach that person.
yeah, and so
Yeah,
I was just like, I'm done. I don't trust anybody anymore.
yeah.
And then years later, I found people like Jay, and I like so meeting Jay and just knowing that world existed, like totally changed everything.
When did you meet Jay? When did you first find out about Jay?
I mean, I had his books in the '90s, or like, but
The Son of a Preacher Man, I would assume,
yes,
because that was his first one. Yeah.
yeah, and it's funny because I had it, and I don't think I ever read it till recently.
Yeah, yeah. I had a similar experience. I had it. It was just sitting on my bookshelf. It was just there and there. I mean, I read it a little bit. Not like it's recent now, but I read it
Yeah,
like a couple of years later. Yeah.
I only bought it because it was like rebellious because he had tattoos, and I was like, yeah, this guy.
It's the same story as I did. It's the same story as
Yeah.
I did. Same story as I did.
And I remember I worked in high end retail here in LA, and it was the year his Kenneth Cole ad was a hit, where he was like, "Do you remember the Kenneth Cole ad?"
Yeah, yeah. That was
Yeah,
like that was like mid 2000s.
yeah.
I think that
So
would have been maybe after One Punk and the God, perhaps.
yes, and so across from me was the Kenneth Cole store. So there was this giant thing
Picture
of
of him.
Jay's arms or whatever, and I was like, "Oh, I know that guy. I don't know him, but I was like, oh, I had that guy's book in the '90s. Cool." you know. And everybody at my store was like, "Oh, Christy's a good little church girl," and I would like Little Wayne. They're like, "Christy, what happened to your Christianity?" But and then like I don't know how I got connected with them. I know it was through Instagram, probably like a year
Hmm.
ago. And then yeah, and then I
Yeah,
found
then
out
he was on your show, right?
he was on my show twice, and then I found out we're the same Enneagram
Really?
4. So
So
we clicked.
are you a bit of an introvert too?
I am now for sure.
Yeah.
I used to not be, but now I'm like, people, bye bye.
Yeah, and I understand that a little bit. And the
Yeah.
thing is that sometimes there's like a good way of playing out a bit of a contrast, and you people,
hmm
what? You're an introvert?
I know.
But and I think Jay does that too. Jay. I'm taking the liberty of talking about you.
I
Forgive
love
me.
Jay. Everyone needs to
Uh,
know about Jay.
but there's this sense of like like of being able to be social. You're able to be
hmm
social, but there's this, and I experienced this too. But I recognize I'm a bit more extroverted. I have a good balance, but I think I'll probably be like 60-40 extroverted,
Mm-hmm.
but I can be very inward and I can be very
Yeah.
like embrace silence and be okay with not be tormented. Before I couldn't. Before I felt like I needed to entertain people,
Oh, okay.
and that's not a good place to be at either.
No, it's stressful. It's
What do
super
you
stressful.
what do you think? Like when you because this you bring up this story and it's something I
Mm-hmm.
relate with too because Jay also like he helped me deconstruct all that stuff and then
Mm-hmm.
eventually we became good friends and he's a really good friend of mine.
Mm-hmm.
So what would you say was it that made him appealing to you other beyond the tattoos, like when it got
Mm-hmm.
down to like the nitty-gritty stuff of life and
I like that it was okay to not be okay and question things
mhm,
because I was always under the impression that you weren't allowed to do that. Or if you were, then you didn't have faith or
yeah.
something, along that line. And it's kind of funny. I don't know why. I'm not like, you'll never hear a cuss word come out of my mouth. Well, my first words are all cuss words. This naturally doesn't happen anymore, but I kind of like that he cussed. I don't know why. I like the cussing faster. That's fun. So kind of like it's still that the rebellious thing. But
Of
I just
course.
loved when I started to get to know him more. I realized we dealt with the same struggles, like mental health, and we both liked a lot of the same things. And I just felt like it was a kindred spirit. Like right away, I knew. So
And to know that that person is existing at the same time as you existing and be
yes,
able to connect, it is
yes,
magical.
it is. Yeah, I'm hoping one day I get to Seattle and high five him or something. Like
Ah,
whenever
sí,
this is
sí, yeah,
over.
he's a world traveler now. He's in Seattle now.
Yeah.
Saludos, Jay, if you're watching.
Yeah. Hey Jay. Hey. No,
um,
I just really, and then he introduced me to Peter Rollins type stuff,
yes,
which is
yes.
it's a little booky for me, some of it.
Yeah, it's more philosophical, I
But
guess.
I like it. It's cool. But also
Yeah.
like people like Pete Holmes. Like I totally resonate with Pete Holmes. Are you familiar with him?
No, I mean, I don't know
Oh,
why that name sounds familiar though.
he was
Is
on
he
a
from the
show
U.S.?
called yeah, he's on a show called Crashing on HBO, and he grew up just like us, like just like us, and he
The
is the
evangelical dynamic.
and he ended up becoming like best friends with Rob Bell, so they're on each other's show. But he's a comedian.
Mm.
Yeah, I'm gonna you just wait till this is over. I'm gonna hook you up with some good stuff. Yes,
Please, please. I'm open arms for sure.
and I actually found.
Um,
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
no, no, I was just googling a picture and I have seen his
Oh,
face.
yeah. And it's funny because the guy who introduced me to MXPX all those years ago, he actually told me about Pete Holmes because he has gone the opposite route in faith. And he was
Yeah,
like, watch this guy's show and you'll understand why I am the way I am now and why I don't believe this stuff anymore. And then when
yeah.
I watched his show, I went the polar opposite direction.
As
And I
he
was just,
from him.
yeah, yeah. Like I kind of went towards like Pete kind of like found it all again in real
Yeah,
life. And I was
yeah.
like, oh no, it just brought me back. And of all things, a show on HBO is what brought me
Huh.
back. It's
I'm
really
I'm
good.
I'm 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 certainly curious to give
It's
that a
good.
watch. You know
Yeah.
what comedian actually gets my attention, and I
Hmm.
like the stuff that he does. It causes a lot of thought provocation, I guess I could say. Is
Uh-huh.
Ricky Gervais.
Oh yeah.
Um,
Yes.
for example, his series on Netflix for
Hmm.
Afterlife. I think it's
Oh yeah.
Afterlife.
Hmm.
Have you seen it?
I haven't, but I know what
It
you're talking about.
is. It's a bit heavy. I don't
Yeah.
think it's for everyone, but it is so beautiful, and I
Mm.
think he has this mastery of being so vulnerable
Right.
and of sharing vulnerable experiences. He has another series called Derek, where he
Mm.
plays like this mentally handicapped guy who
Oh,
works
okay.
in a retirement home,
Uh-huh.
and then there's these little moments where he comes up with these very quotable things
Yeah.
about religion, faith,
Okay.
society.
Yeah.
They're a treat to watch, and
Nice.
they're very short. They're only 6 episodes per season. They only have like
Okay.
2, 3 seasons. They are very quotable, and then they'll leave you like once you finish an episode, it's time to digest it, and it's just very beautiful. It's about human
Okay.
connections.
Nice.
Highly recommended as well.
I do
So
like him.
no, no. See, do you have any reference from him other than the stand-up comedies or any movies that
Um,
you've seen?
yeah, because I know he's a big fan of animal rights. Like, and so
As I am
that's
too.
how,
Yeah.
yes. And so that's where I was like, oh, I like this guy. But I knew he was like funny or whatever. But I really love that. I like that side of him. it made me happy.
He's also I've also seen him. Last time I saw him in any sort of like interview was with Russell Brand,
Oh
and those two, man, they make sparks fly.
yeah. I
So
love
good,
Russell. Ugh,
so good. I read his
so good.
book, Russell's book, Recovery, and it
Yes, I
changed my
have it.
life. Did
You
you
know
read
what's
it too,
funny?
or is it just sitting in
Yes.
your bookshelf?
No, 3 times. 3 times.
Yes, I've
And
read it
what's
2 times.
really what's really ironic is I read it like when it first came out, and this is maybe news to people who are watching this, but I've announced that already. But I'm 1.5 months into AA right now, and
I
I'm like, I
read.
need to go back and read that book again because I'm like, he was talking about all these things, and
Yes.
it's amazing, so good. I suggest.
What did that book do for you? And what did you when you picked it up, did you find yourself in that place of what it was going to do to you, or it was just random, or
It was kind of one of those things where I kind of suspected that that's where I was going to end up. Like, I was like, I think I have a problem, but everyone I had talked about it are like, no, no, you don't have a problem. Like, you're just being paranoid. And so when I read it, okay, I'm not gonna lie. I've listened to the audiobook. I haven't read
yeah,
it.
no, me
Okay.
too. I have the
Okay.
book, but I
Okay.
followed through. But many times I was
Yeah.
just because I have a little bit of it's hard for me, and
Me too.
I'm right now doing my masters, and it is
Yeah.
very difficult
It
without
is.
any Adderall or anything. It's very difficult, but I'm trying to
Yes.
do it. I'm trying to do it. So
Plus, he
you listened,
narrates
you
it.
read it.
Yes. And at
It's
first I was like,
legit.
oh, well, Russell's reading it himself. I love his voice, so this must be
Yes.
awesome. And then the more I got into it, I was like, wow. Like I felt, like you said, I felt myself in his story, not to the extreme as the stuff he had gone through, but I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, yeah, this is so me. And it made me feel hopeful. And then just,
Yes.
yeah, yeah.
Yes. Did was that the first sort of venture that you kind of walked into Russell, or did you have any sort? Because he has other books as well, but a
Yeah,
little
book
different.
wise, yeah, no, I've never read any of his other books. I think I may have I have another audio one, but I haven't started it yet. I can't remember what it's called. I'm bad. I
Is
just
it
buy
one
stuff and I
after?
forget.
Is it the one he did after? There's
I
like
don't
blue.
know. I know
The
the
cover.
name, but I don't know. I'm not sure. I
Yeah,
just love him.
that's why I gave the color. Maybe the color would
I
spring
know.
up a
Normally,
memory
yes.
bite.
Normally, yes. It's funny. Like, have you seen Forgetting Sarah Marshall?
Yes, I have, but I don't remember so well. It's a rom com, right?
Yeah, there's one
More or
part
less.
there where he gets wine on his shirt. And he's like, "Oh no, take my eyes, not the shirt." I don't know, and it makes me laugh. So every time I spill something on myself, I'll be like, "Oh no!" I don't know.
I might
That's
react
hilarious.
to that depending on the shirt I might spill it on because I have some shirts that
Yeah.
are like I have a long story. They would be very old. Like I have this shirt from my grandpa who
Oh,
died some years ago, and it's a shirt he used to wear when he was a young cat. And I guess
yeah.
he didn't wear that much. That shirt you see it, you wouldn't think it's like from the 1950s. So if
Wow.
something were to happen to that shirt, yes, I would be like, please take my eyes, don't take the shirt. Except hyperbolically, of course.
Yeah.
So you have one more experience to share if you can gather
Oh.
something.
Hmm. Something that's like changed my life. You're saying?
Something that you recognize it was you think back on it and it relates to where you're at now, like a turning point ideologically, philosophically, existentially, sexually, whatever. I mean, to be honest.
I think. I think reading. Have you read Love Wins?
From Rob Bell?
Yeah.
No, I know about it, but I never read it.
Okay. So that was a book I was told not to read because it was heresy or
Yeah,
whatever. And so I
yeah.
didn't read it for so long. And then I read it last year and I was like, ah, changed so much. Like it just opened up. It's kind of like I met Jay, read that book,
Yeah.
and then found Richard Rohr. Are you familiar with
Yeah,
him?
see,
Oh,
see,
all
see.
of that at the exact same time.
That's
And
a
it was
lot
just
to take
like
in.
it was awesome. It
That's a
was
lot to take in. You must have
yeah.
been already kind of like in that gear
Oh yeah.
to
I
welcome
was
all
ready.
those.
Yeah, because I was like so confused. So it was very, ever since then, I've been way less anxious. Like before that, if I could go, I think I talked to Jay about it. If someone was speaking like Christianese to me, I would get
Yeah,
anxiety and like shut down.
yeah.
And so now I'm just like, cool.
And
um,
that's what do you think the result of that way to approach things is like this. How did you get there? In summary, or
I think I got there. I think my friend Jared went and saw Rob Bell live, and I was like, "That guy's still around? Like, I haven't heard from him in a long time."
from the Numa? Did you have the reference from like when he used to do the Numa videos?
Like back in the day, yeah. But this
It
was
was
like a
Numa,
year and
right?
a yeah,
Numa was
uh-huh.
it? Yeah.
That was Numa. But this was like a year and a half ago, and my friend Jared went and saw him, and so I found his podcast.
Mm-hmm.
And there's an episode about God, I can't remember what it was called, but I was like, holy moly, I
What was
needed
it
that.
about?
It was about like anxieties and like embracing doubt and
Oof,
how
yeah, very
like
relatable.
just a lot of stuff I was going through like that day, like specifically. And
Yeah.
so I just kind of binge listened to everything. And then when I found out about Pete Holmes, and I'm like, holy moly, he's best friends with Rob Bell. And then Pete Holmes has Richard Rohr on his podcast too. And it all like started to come together. And it was
Makes a
really
lot of
cool.
sense.
Yeah. And then we went and
Did
saw
you
Pete.
did you? And I want you to finish that thought. But did you ever attend the Wild Goose at some point? The
I've
Wild
never
Goose
heard of that.
Festival.
Oh,
The Wild Goose Festival.
I've never heard of it.
Oh my goodness! Well, the Wild Goose Festival is basically this festival has been going on for now 10 years next year,
Okay.
and it's a progressive Christian based festival.
Uh-huh.
But I would say it's more of an inter-spirituality kind of faith. I mean, we have people like we have, for example, Bushi Yamagato, who's been here,
Hmm.
and he is a Buddhist monk, and he
Okay.
was a former evangelical, I think it was a Baptist pastor.
Okay.
And he would say, like, he embraced the path of the Buddha, even though he still has Christ in his path. So you have people like that. You have people that have stories for example, I think it was Chris Stedman. He wrote a book called Faithiest,
Mm.
and he talks about leaving Christianity, and he's one of
Hmm.
the guests there. So there's atheists, there's
Interesting.
agnostics, there's Christians,
Yeah.
there's Hindus, there's all kinds. So I'm surprised you've never heard of it. It is I think
Yeah.
Richard has participated in it.
Oh, I love
Peter,
him.
Jay,
Oh,
Doug Paget, a whole bunch
really?
of people have participated
Wow.
in the festival.
Where's it
It
at?
happens in Nashville, in North Carolina.
Ah, cool.
So be
Yeah.
on the
Oh,
lookout for next year.
I just thought of another thing that happened this past year. Can I have a fourth?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So,
Indeed.
so before COVID, I reached out to a certain musician, like forever. I reached out to his management company, always shot down, always shot down. And when COVID hit, he started checking his Instagram messages, and I had messaged him like 2 years ago about being on like my blog or something, like before even podcast world. And and so right during that time, right when like the lockdown happened, I was in it. I was in a bad place, like mentally. And it was just one day where I was just having a really hard time, and he wrote me back. And he was like, I'd love to be on your podcast. And I was like, okay, this is cool. And he ended up being like by far one of my favorite people. Like I kind of feel like he may have saved my life in a weird way. And it's
Wow.
someone that like I used to go watch play in Austin like over and over again when I was a kid.
Who is this
Yeah.
mystery
Oh,
person?
his name is Chris Conley. He's from the band Save the Day.
Oh
And
wow, that's
and
awesome.
he's awesome. And he like introduced me to a book called A Path with Heart by Jack Kornfield. And is a Buddhist fella. And and he's like very like he just introduced me to that like inner peace kind of world, and he's just
Hmm.
very happy and just a very bubbly, happy soul. And I just felt like I needed that in my life. And so that was I think I met him in March. It's like March.
As this thing was
And
happening, as this thing was starting, yeah.
yeah, and so that friendship has opened up a lot of joy for me. It's been
And
awesome.
that is definitely the line of stories
Yeah.
that are part of the category of transformation, especially within this context,
Hmm.
and also welcoming new ideas, these
Yeah.
new um, finding oneself, because
Hmm. Hmm.
it isn't, it seems like a very easygoing, doable thing. But in the
Yeah.
life we live in, with everything so rushed and so go, 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 and I
Yeah.
think that's something that COVID has, or at least in times of COVID, we have had perhaps a chance to reflect on the go, 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 and the unsustainability behind that.
That's true. You know what's ironic is my husband works from home and he's never been busier ever. Like he's so busy. And we're the exact opposite. I'm like,
What does
I
he
got
do?
nothing going. He works in movie production. So you would think like, oh, they're not shooting movies, but yeah, they
Yeah.
still are. So it's nuts.
Did
Yeah.
it take a while for her to get that winding going?
No, they just basically test everybody like crazy. And so they're basically testing everyone right now. Like every three
And
days.
doing their and just doing their
Yeah.
shots and whatnot.
Yeah. And you know like the NBA was in their bubble?
Yep.
Like they're doing that with movies. Like they're in their
Okay.
bubble. And
Yeah.
it's I'll tell you afterwards who was in it because I don't know if it's worth spilling it on here.
No,
But
I
it's
see.
awesome. It's
Good. We can have
awesome.
a little chat afterwards.
But yeah, it's
Do
just wild.
do you think that thinking of this I think this is just like thinking maybe 5 years from now and looking
Hmm.
back on 2020. I mean, all the different books and researches and all the stuff that's going to come out of this year is going to be
Hmm.
it's going to
Oh,
be magnificent.
yes.
And again, I really want to be careful because I don't want to romanticize pain. I don't want to romanticize hurt. Like people
Hmm.
have been. This isn't like some little laboratory so we can go and get to our nirvanas. But as humans, we have a way that that we are. I don't want to use the word resilience, um, but we're evolving. So when
Hmm.
we find ourselves in situations that we're not accustomed to, there is some kind of way. We all are very different, but that we kind of maneuver some dynamic
Hmm.
to
Yeah,
find some fruition.
totally. Yes, 100%.
So
I
so so what I wanted to ask you is, thinking about this time of COVID, what do you feel has been a continual learning lesson about yourself, for yourself, that you have learned in this time? Or maybe
I
you
def-
haven't learned anything, and that's fine.
it's weird. Like I feel like it's made me a lot more aware of what I want to accomplish. Before I kind of took for granted time and people, and now that I have more of it, I'm trying to do more with it.
Mm,
And realize it's not something I should take for granted because a lot of people don't have time or resources, and I feel like I have both right now to do what I want to do. And so that's big. As far as like kind of like a deeper level, I've just realized that I miss a lot of my friends that I
mm,
didn't realize before. I'm just like, I just want to hug my friends so bad. Like so many people that I didn't really call people before. I would text people, but now like I'll call people on the phone and it's like, oh, I miss you guys. Or I've been really nostalgic and pulling out like old mixies that my friends made me, or I'm like a hoarder of all things nostalgic. So I have like from Texas brought over all my old love letters, all my old friendship letters, all my old photos, and I'll just sit there and read them all and remember all those times.
wow.
Yeah, and I'm still friends with all these people. I'm not being a weirdo. Um,
So
but
do you call them and recite these letters to them so they can
yes,
remember?
yes, I take pictures of them and I'm like, remember this? Remember this? What were you thinking this day?
This is an ideal scenario for any exes that remain in friendship to
Uh-huh.
revisit their romance through love letters. That'd be an interesting
Uh-huh.
therapeutic report to,
I mean,
to
technically it was only like the first boyfriend, which I'm like still really good friends with. And so I
yeah,
didn't keep
yeah.
all the other like lamos, but those
It's
were
good. I'm glad you clarified, because I
yes.
was making all these
Yeah.
movies in my head.
Yes. Like I was
Um,
engaged to someone at one point and I don't even know where he lives anymore. Like I'm
yeah.
like I have nothing of his, but I still have my very first boyfriend's like love letters.
That's good. I think it's good to have that, and if that navigates itself in a healthy way, that's fine. That's completely
Yeah.
fine. Um, and talking about like your which you mentioned somewhat, the chances you've had of meeting people through your podcast.
Hmm.
What are some interesting folk that you've had on your program that you might want to share about what the dynamic was, or maybe what the maybe a renowned name that you thought this way, and then you met, you're like, wow, it's completely different than what I had imagined, or just anything that might pop up to your head about just things that you are very grateful for, conversations you've been able to have through your podcast, that you're like, I am so blessed to be having this thing and be able to talk to people I talk to.
Totally. I definitely, Jay, that was my like most like professional one because I got to do it at Sony Pictures in a soundproof room.
Wow.
And I was like, this is awesome. All the other ones have been here with my dog in the background, like doing something. But
Which are special too.
yeah. And I just remember being really excited to talk to Jay and then learning more about him as the conversation went on and then getting a friendship out of that. Another big one was Chris Conley. Thinking that he was going to be some kind of like typical, not typical in a bad way, but just a band guy that's talked about bands. And it like went 180 degrees in another way. And it was amazing. It's so fun. And my most recent was Chris Carrabba from Dashboard Confessional.
See, I told you I expressed to you my jealousy about that one.
That I still don't know how that happened.
Please tell us how did that happen.
He's also one of those people I have like reached out to several times, can't get a hold of him, reached out to all kinds of stuff. And we have a mutual friend who wrote a book and I shared about it and we were talking back and forth and he was like, hey, we should talk more. And then I was like, what? And then we just started texting and I was like, if you ever want to be on my podcast, like you're more than welcome. He's like, I'd love to. And I was like, okay. So I was like, well, how do we do it? Yeah. And he's like, I was like, how do we do it? Because like, do I go through like your agency? He's like, well, just tell me when you want to do it and then call me. And I'm like, oh my God. Like,
that's cool.
It's been fun. And then, yeah, getting a really cool friendship out of that. Like he also is an Enneagram 4. And so was Conley.
Is that a pre-requirement to be in your podcast?
I flock to these people. I don't know anything about any other Enneagram.
What is the 4? What is the 4 in the Enneagram?
It's the I can't say this word, individualist. But we're also like, we feel everything very deeply. And like, there's like funny memes that are like, if you're a 4, what are you doing on a Friday night? And one of them was like, listening to Mixtapes My Friend Maybe in 6th grade. And I'm like, that's so me. But
makes sense the way you said.
Yeah.
What is the 5? What is the 5 in the?
I'm not sure. I literally only know the 4.
Investigator, because I think that might be me.
Okay, that makes sense if that's true.
A little bit. I'm investigating.
Yeah, with Carrabba, I just kind of assumed it was gonna be like, okay, that was amazing, and I'll chat with you later. And then we've gone back and forth, and like he like sends me songs, like we do like a mixtape back and forth kind of thing. And I'm like,
that's so cool.
What planet is this? This is insane.
That's so cool.
So that's nuts.
When people become become humanized.
Yeah.
That we think we're kind of not humans.
Yeah, so it's really cool. So I've been really pumped. And then I think I mentioned to you that I'm trying to write the screenplay type thing. And it's very musically based. And so I've actually sent it to Conley. I sent it to Carrabba. And they're like giving me notes back and forth. Conley said he wants to write a song for it one day. Carrabba said he wants to write a song for it one day. And I'm like, I have no idea what's happening. This is nuts.
How did you come up with this idea of wanting to do a screenplay? And how did you even get to start it? Like, did you have any sort of tutoring by someone, or like your partner that works in the industry? Or, I don't know.
Well, he's a writer for sure. He writes movies. He has like 2 shorts out, and he wrote another one that we just filmed. But honestly, it's something that's been in my head for at least 20 years. It's just slowly progressed, and for a while, it was just I was gonna write it as like a journal entry, like a live journal. Remember that? It was gonna be like a live journal, and then it started to be more of a story. And then when I met Mark, my husband, he was like, "You should write it as a screenplay." And so I've rewritten it like 7 billion times, like so many times, because it's very autobiographical. Not like exactly, but it's based on like my view of kind of what I've gone through, but kind of set in the 90s, because I'm obsessed with the 90s. Yeah. And it's just really cool because the girl ends up being a music supervisor. Do you know what that is?
A music supervisor?
Mm-hmm.
Is that a real position, or is that
yes,
something?
It's like my dream job. Mm-hmm. It's the person
what does a
who
music supervisor do?
it's the person basically that creates soundtracks to movies.
Huh.
Yeah.
The
So she ends up,
mastermind.
yes. So she ends up being a music supervisor later in life, and then it kind of goes back and forth of how she got there. And so when I talked to Karaba, we talked about how he got on the Spider-Man soundtrack, and he was talking about the supervisor, music supervisor, and I was like, I think that would be the coolest job. He's like, me too. And so afterwards, I was like, hey, I wrote this story about a music supervisor, and it just sparked this joy in me again. So now I'm like writing, trying to get this thing done.
And that's where the evolving elements of the story come in. That you're getting these new things, and you
Yep.
kind of like insert them in,
Yes.
and they kind of relight the flame, and
Mm-hmm.
you have a
Yep.
momentum. Are you at this moment in times of COVID? Are you diving into it or is it kind of like in a bit of a pause moment?
Definitely more during COVID. Before, I was meeting once a week with my friend Amy. I met her at Sony. She does Foley, which is another really cool job, but they do sound effects for movies. And
Nice.
so it was so cool. So I would meet with her, and then I don't know. I think you're kind of like, I think it's kind of like the books. Like I can't focus on things for long. And so when I find people who are excited with me about it, or I think want to contribute, or like them wanting to read it and give me their feedback, that like sparks that fire for me. It's
Yeah, I would
hard for me to
imagine.
do it alone. Like I'm not gonna lie. Like me by myself, it'll never get done. It's like I need a community of people.
And I think that comments as to that comments as to a common characteristic that we have in life, that we are
Hmm.
communal people, and then when people
Yeah.
kind of come alongside us, and
Hmm.
they have this a bit of a sync.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
sparks can fly, and there could be some cool dynamics that can happen, whether it be working together or just a good friendship.
Yes.
So if when you comment on that, I think of things or projects that I have maybe meddled in, or just
Hmm.
people that I just really connect with, and I'm like, oh, this is a person I can really connect with in this particular
Hmm.
dynamic, and
Yeah.
it'll spark up some sort of whatever in that particular season that I would
Hmm.
really find very much of a benefit to, and it'll be mutually
Totally.
enriching. Do you? I want to talk a little bit about the religious topic, because I think that brings us together in some
Hmm.
aspects. What do you think was for you that perhaps that first? I like visualizing, like kind of like giant dominoes falling on
Hmm.
top of each other. So
Hmm.
what do you think was that first gigantic, or this first domino of faith or of religious belief that might have fallen over and then started perhaps knocking over other things? Like maybe
Like in
that
the,
big question that you had, like
oh.
that big moment of deconstruction. I
Hmm.
don't want to use big words, but I just really
Hmm.
see like a domino. Like for me, just to give you a bit of an example, for me was when I was doing Bible college in Australia. That's
Hmm.
what I reference Hillsong, because I was there for a year and a
Ah.
half.
Mm.
While being there, I
Hmm.
started, and at that time it was 2005, 2006. I already knew about Jay, and I was following him in Atlanta. And that's when he was deconstructing the whole thing about
Hmm.
LGBTQ issues.
Hmm.
So as a bit of a counter effect or a subsequent to that, I'm listening to it, so I'm starting to question it, but
Hmm.
very uncomfortably. I was like, I don't feel very comfortable about this.
Right.
I felt like
Hmm.
he was, and I wasn't like turn or burn or anything, but it made me uncomfortable because it
Right.
was questioning things. That was my first domino,
Okay.
and then I picked up Mike Yaconelli's book, Messy Spirituality, and that did it for me too. So just an example for me. I don't know what it might have been for
Hmm.
you.
Mine, it sounds okay. So I have to give you a little background to who I am. I like am a ball of anxiety all the time, and so anything that can go wrong is gonna go wrong. I'm just convinced of it, and super
Hmm.
scared of all kinds of things. So I grew up. I started going to church when I was 13. So all through high school, it was in late 90s. That was the big Left Behind series movies. Do you remember those?
Yes. Oh yes, of
That's
course.
the
Kirk
stuff I
Cameron.
like. Yeah, no, it's before Kirk Cameron, like the OG ones.
Oh wow, these must have been very gory.
Oh, they were terrifying. And so I was constantly afraid, like constantly afraid, and constantly was like,
Wow.
well, I'm only gonna, like, I was always being told, like, this is it, this is the end. So I never planned anything for my life. I never was like, I'm never going to get married. I'm never going to have kids. Like, there's no point. Why even hope for these things? Because it's about to be the end.
It's pointless, yeah.
Yeah. And when I started, like when I wrote that guy from Hillsong, the Hillsong Church, that's what I was asking him about. And when I didn't get an answer and got pushed off to someone else, I was like, that's it. Like, I don't understand. And I had a friend that was going to seminary, and he introduced me to someone named Gary DeMar. Mm-hmm. And he's not like big or anything, but he wrote a book about, it's called End Times Madness. And it was like deconstructing the end times eschatology and stuff. And I was like, oh my God, this makes so much more sense to me. And learning that what us in America have been taught is like only 150 years old.
Yeah,
like as new. Far as, you know, very new. So I was like, that's weird. And then when I started really like diving into it, I'm like, I don't think this is real anymore. And so now I'm not worried. I used to be afraid of everything. If like Jerusalem was in the news, I'm like, oh God, here we go. You know, I was so scared. And this is up until, it's kind of embarrassing to admit, but this was up to the first Obama administration. Like, that's how recent it was.
Yeah.
I was like terrified of everything.
This is recent.
Yeah.
I mean, come to think of it.
Yeah, it's weird. Yeah. So I was out here in LA, and it's scary.
How long have you been living in LA?
14 years.
Okay, so you've been there for a while. So you were pilgrimaging LA with this sort of cosmovision of the world and kind of like a bit of a punitive idea of God and wow.
Yeah,
so
it was crazy.
When did you when did you strip away from it, or at least start stripping away from it? Like around, was it Obama time? Was it around?
Yeah, I remember being afraid because I remember my brother voting for Obama the first time, and I was like, oh no, oh God, Jeff's gone off the deep end. Like, silly now, but I was super scared, and that's when my friend introduced me to that guy, Gary DeMar, and it's funny because I haven't listened to him in a long time, but I would like YouTube all his he would debate like premillennialism, I can't say it, premillennialism people, and I was like, wow, there's something like calming knowing that I could believe in God again and believe in the person of Jesus and not be afraid. And like, I was having the same discussion with my mom the other day about how I don't think, like, a lot of people's mentality is that the world's getting worse and there's nothing we can do about it. And I was like, no, I think we're here to make it better. This is like, we're like, people think I'm being deceived, but I think some other people are being deceived and thinking that the world is bad. Yeah. And so I was trying to explain to her, I feel closer now to God, but not the God that I knew for a long time, if that makes any sense.
No, it makes a lot of sense.
Okay. Yeah. So
a lot of sense.
There's a podcast called You Have Permission. Have you heard of it?
No, I have not.
Oh man, it's so good. It's the guy, his name is Dan Koch, and he's in Sherwood. Do you remember that band Sherwood?
Yes, I do.
They were on Tooth and Nail. So he's getting his like doctorate in psychology or something right now. And he has a whole podcast about deconstruction that he has, and it's super good.
And it goes into psychological issues, like mental issues and stuff like that.
Mental, yeah. That's how I found him, is he did an entire study, like a 4-part study on the mental trauma that the Left Behind type stuff caused.
That's specific.
Yeah, caused a generation. And he interviewed like 40 or 50 people. It was wild. So I would suggest, if anybody out there has any questions about anything and you're open, that's a great podcast to listen to. They even talk about Jay. I was like, Jay, I heard your name on this podcast. I was all very excited.
And they talked about Jay in a positive light.
Yeah, they were like, oh, he's doing some great stuff. And like, and I was like, yes. So I was really pumped.
My memories, because I was actually born in the church. I mean, I say that I've been in church even prenatally because my mom was baptized when she was pregnant of me.
Wow.
So I've been getting that load even before I came out. So Pentecostal church was in the Puerto Rican context is a very, brimstone fire, tongue
Yeah.
speaking,
Mm-hmm.
probably speaking more of the devil than you speak about God in the preaching.
Mm-hmm.
Like very strict in the appearance, women with skirts, no
Wow.
makeup. Yeah, very a bit puritanical,
Yeah.
and that was my environment where I grew up. That was
Same.
normal for me.
Yeah.
People dancing around like little
Uh-huh.
torpedoes, and did
No,
you have
me
that
too.
too?
Yeah, like
Wonderful.
I went to Bible college for a few months afterwards, and I compared that to Jesus Camp documentary.
Oh
Have
my
you
God,
seen?
that's so
So I
traumatic to
went.
see that.
Yeah, so I grew up in that world. Very, yeah, I totally understand. There was a lot of really great stuff that came out of,
Yeah,
but yeah, yeah. I learned later that there's other
sometimes they
versions.
have good food and stuff like that. But yeah, there's. I mean, I say I have this thing. I don't know if I heard it somewhere else, but I'm like, there's no 100% devil. I don't think there's anyone who's
Hmm.
100% devil. Everyone,
Yeah,
even the worst person in the world, has something good that he does.
of course. Hmm.
Maybe he blinks well. People have different abilities,
Yeah.
but also it removes us from this sort of like binary or dualistic way of thinking, like black, white,
Hmm.
in, out,
Hmm. Yep.
cowboy, Indian, how we make our constructions of how we conceive our ancestors and whatnot. So I mean, and I'm surprised because I'm coming in with obviously with perceptions, and this is on
Hmm.
me, that since you're referencing it's quite recent, like this
Hmm.
processes of deconstruction. I mean, it's been over a decade, but
Hmm.
in terms of how you mentioned how you saw Obama, you know,
Yeah. And I
it is
voted for him the
funny.
second time.
You did.
Yeah,
Good. That's some
100%.
progress.
Yeah. Yeah, I laugh now, but I'm like, that was wild. It was wild. Yeah.
Do you think that now looking at our political climate now,
Hmm.
and as you see people who are in your shoes as you were then, but
Hmm.
in this very different political climate, what is your reading of, and I don't mean to to want to get you in that place of where you're watching live news, and that's an unending spiraling thing to know where I've been there.
Hmm.
I've had to shut down some things,
Yeah.
but in a healthy way, as much as you can. What are your reflections upon like these last 4 years, and especially even just now, as to what's going on now, like this whole
Mm,
thing about these cases that they're trying to make about the election,
I
and
know.
and the evangelical sector that has been like just like
Yeah,
Siamesed up with to the
I
end.
know.
Franklin Graham, Paula White, all these people.
Hmm.
What is your reading about this?
I um I was very disturbed by the loyalty that President Trump had. Like, because I was like explain to people like, okay, cool, like I get like you're Republican or Democrat, but also like he's not a president, he's actually a person, and him as a person is a horrible person. And they would
Entirely.
like the things he would do. I'm like, they're so unchristlike, and like, I'm like, they're so bad, and or like, I hope man, this is on Facebook now. I'm gonna be in trouble, but like a lot of people bring up like the abortion issue, and I know that's
Hmm.
like a thing, and I'm like, if you're convinced that you really think that guy cares about abortion, like he does
Yeah.
not, like at all, and so I think I was just really, I think I was just really sad because I feel like people weren't. I don't know. It sounds very Christiany, and I like they were being deceived and thinking that this is, they're like, oh, this is God's chosen person. I'm like,
Yeah.
he's
Some
a
people probably thought like
terror.
that.
Yeah, he's a horrible, horrible man. Like, I think one time I was like, I feel like he's kind of like evil, not like in a like red devil evil kind of way, but I was like, he's not. I don't know. Like, it just made me sad.
Did you
You
have
know.
conflictive or sort of like dynamics amongst people close to you that were maybe in
Mm,
that boat, or no?
luckily, no. I think
Mm.
'cause I moved away, but I got off Facebook for a while because I was like, I can't. I can't handle this. Like
Because you had some
people,
people that were in that line.
yeah,
Mm.
and it was a little scary and nerve wracking. And I'm from such a small town, so I didn't want to go back home and it'd be weird, you
Yeah,
know.
yeah.
Um, but I don't know. It just I couldn't understand how they could validate this person. And I wasn't doing like I said, it wasn't a Republican Democrat issue. It was like this is
Yeah,
a good person versus a not great. Like I wouldn't want to be friends with this person. Like why would you want to hang out with this guy? And
that's what
uh,
doesn't make a lot of sense.
it doesn't. And it really just made my heart hurt a lot. Um, I don't know how else to put it. It just made me really sad.
What is your what sense of hope do you have? Like now in a post Trump time, which is
Hmm.
not real, but like at least post him being president.
Yeah.
What is your hope? You can be utopic. But what is your or let's see, what is your realistic hope that
Mm,
will occur?
my realistic hope, I guess, is that there'll be less division
Mm,
because I felt like Trump just brought a lot of black and white division and a lot of name calling, or was it Jay called scapegoating? Like I think of Jay when I hear scapegoating now, but just a
yeah,
lot of
yeah, yeah.
that. And I just hope that because I feel like there never was like a big divide, like this big of a divide until Trump came.
Mm-hmm.
Like you could kind of like talk to people and it'd be fine. Now it's like people are on both sides. Like can't they won't
Yeah.
even. I've had friends whose moms blocked them on Facebook and won't talk to their kids anymore over this. And I'm like, that's horrible. And this is someone who goes to church and she won't talk to her child anymore
But do you
because
think
she.
this was like a long time coming? Like this was gonna happen either way. Like it's kind of like brought up like like
Hmm,
Cyndi Lauper's True Colors. It's kind of
hmm,
brought up that a
hmm,
little bit of that.
maybe. I think he
Not
definitely fueled the
entirely,
fire.
but
Yeah, I think he definitely fueled the fire for sure.
mm,
Like 100%. I just, yeah, I don't know. It's funny because I never paid much attention to politics until this election because I was like, this is the one time I think I have to.
yeah, yeah,
Before it's like it was important, but it wasn't that. I was like, I am so just want this guy out of here. It could
yeah,
have been even if it was like if it's another Republican, that's fine. But just get this guy out of here,
yeah.
and that's kind of where I was. But
Is definitely a desperate cry, and even I that
mhm.
have a little bit of relationship with Germany and stuff. I mean, the
Oh
global attention towards
yes,
what was going on here, it
scary.
was it was insane. Like
Yeah.
I watched German TV and I got to see
Uh huh.
some coverage of them in the district I live in, like
Uh huh.
covering like the type of voting that they were doing, the drive-through
Hmm.
voting, because it's such a new thing, and they
Yeah.
were interviewing people and whatnot. And I was watching, I'm like, huh. And they actually even interviewed Doug Paget when he was doing the Vote Common Good tour. They did
Hmm.
this whole Vote Common Good with Reverend Vince and some other people, and they interviewed some of them, and they actually followed them around. Also because they represented a sector of Christianity
Yeah.
that was fervently against Donald Trump. So I guess that
Yeah.
they're
Interesting.
highlighting
Yeah.
that in the international community
Yeah.
because of the painting that evangelicals are for Donald Trump, which a good number of them are, especially
Hmm.
the powerful ones,
Hmm. Yep.
are in that boat.
The You Have Permission podcast does like a couple episodes on that. And one was like I forgot what the guy's name was, but it was a pastor and he had always been Republican and he was like, I couldn't do it this time.
Hmm.
And and it was nice like hearing like his view on it because I was like, oh, this helps me communicate with other people who think this guy is like the best thing that God's ever
Entirely,
given
yeah.
America. I'm like, no. You can disagree. Like it's not like you turn your back on like your people.
Or
But
God.
yeah, or God, yeah. I'm like, you think? I don't know. It sounds super cheesy. I'm like, you really think God would like this guy now? I mean, I know he loves him, but
It's
do you think
just,
he'd like him?
dear
Luckily, my
God.
parents are super easy to talk to, so it wasn't a problem.
That's good. No, it's good. It's good to have
Yeah,
people you can talk to. The many
yeah,
people don't have that space, and
yeah.
many families are very
Ugh,
highly tense environments to
yeah,
even think about this.
yeah. Especially as a woman too. This past 4 years has been, oh, like, just nah,
A lot of
not good.
attention to that. A lot of attention. I've learned a lot from, actually. I've had some in my program good friends of mine that are active feminists in Puerto Rico. They are part of some collectives, and I've learned a lot
Yeah.
from that. Even in terms of how I view my bit of a topic change here, but that's thanks for how I view relationships.
Yeah.
How I view relationships. What
Hmm.
is the dynamic like to be in a relationship? You know, and now
Yeah.
I have this perspective of what does it mean like if you're getting to know a person and you come to this sort of consenting mutuality
Hmm.
that you're coming together. What does that mean? What does that translate to? Because there's already these preconceived notions like, oh, so she's going to be my girlfriend, and the title comes in and whatnot, and then that comes with so much baggage. So I've
Hmm.
been problematizing that and like, okay, so when that happens, I want it to be a celebration of individuality.
Hmm.
I celebrate your individuality, you celebrate my individuality. Not that we become individualists, but that we're
Yeah.
coming together and celebrating our own works, our own works of
Hmm.
art, rather than come and let's do a melting pot, which is the whole melting pot myth. Bullshit.
Yeah.
I want you to come as you are and experience this dynamic together. And I've been
Hmm.
problematizing that because I've realized how much I've had that in relationships. Like I come
Yeah.
with this, oh, I'm the guy. Getting rid of this the machismo and the
Right.
sexism and all that bullshit,
Hmm.
because it's not the way I think we're meant to relate with one
Yeah.
another,
No, I agree.
for guys or women.
Right. It's funny, like, well, not funny at all, but I remember one point, I cannot believe I said this. I remember one point saying, I don't know if Hillary Clinton should have been president because she was a woman and we're emotional. Like, I said that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
And I
yeah,
was like, why? Like, I
yeah,
cannot
yeah,
believe, like,
yeah.
this, like, I mean, lesson learned, but I think I was thinking my own self, like, I couldn't do it. Like, I wouldn't want that job. Heck no. Um, but with all of this said, I do believe that there's hope for everybody. Like the worst of the worst, like if Donald Trump wants to turn his life around and be an awesome human, I'm for it. You know.
Yeah, of course,
So
of course.
I'm not like I'm not anti him as a person. I just didn't like him as a president.
Anti the shit he does. You know,
Yes.
it's nothing personal. It's always nothing. People want to sabotage the confrontation like it's a personal. No, it's just the shit you do. It's not personal. It's
Yeah.
nothing personal. It's just the shit you do is what affects things. You know.
Like just be nice. It's not hard.
I know. Yeah, yeah. If you're nice, you stop doing the shit you do. We can have a personal relationship that's much better than what we have now. You know.
Yeah.
And something about this idea of Donald Trump changing, for example, and
Hmm.
this is not to because that's part of the narrative that the evangelical community have used. You know, this whole idea of
Hmm.
redemption and whatnot. I
Right.
mean, the level of grace that I've seen the evangelical community have towards Donald Trump is nowhere near what they've even had for, like, for example, the LGBT community. Like,
Right.
but for
Yeah.
Donald Trump, it's like this whole like it's like this first
Hmm.
class service of grace that I don't
Right.
know where it came from.
Right.
I think it comes from this hunger of power.
Yeah.
We're at the table, and now we can eat with the powerful people.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. You know what's funny? I always thought maybe it does in Texas come up a lot, but that what's the scripture? I'm really bad at it that says like the love of money is the root of all evil.
Yeah, I don't know where
I
it's at,
thought
but
of
I know. Yeah,
I thought of that like several times over the last 4 years.
it is.
Because
It's just very
everything was
applicable.
money. Yeah, like why is no one like even thinking about that? Like things are happening financially based. Like I was like, I don't understand. But I was like,
But you do know why they don't. I mean, they know it's in there, but you do know why they don't use it.
no, tell me.
I mean, it isn't like I'm making some big discovery. It is some big mystery that I've discovered. It's obviously because of the fact that they're always going to apologetically win. There's
Yeah.
always going to be an explication for everything.
Yeah.
That's a passage that will need further contextualizing in this context. So the
You
Bible
too.
is certainly clear for some things, but for that type of scenario, that type of example, it's not clear enough.
Yeah.
It's too profound for us, and the ways of the Lord are beyond us. In some scenarios, for other scenarios, there's no mystery. There's no ways
Right.
beyond us. We can
Yeah.
interpret them in five,
Yeah.
four, three, two, one. I know what God's will is. It's
Yes.
it can go on like this. I can go
Yes.
on rampage
I
like this forever
know.
because of Texas and because of
Uh-huh.
my history in Puerto Rico, who also has a bit of a conservative
Yeah.
backing. But Texas is Texas.
Yep.
Texas is
It's funny
Texas.
too. I remember like living in Texas and everyone's like, California. There's always like California and New York. We're like,
The
And
devil.
and my mom, I remember my mom sent me a postcard, and it was silly, like she doesn't mind, but it was like words, Texas words versus I don't know, it was like Texas slang, and one was like California means the devil or something like
Yeah,
that.
yeah,
It was
yeah.
silly, but
Six six six
I've
six.
yeah, but I feel like I've grown so much since moving and like meeting people from all walks of life, and it's totally opened my eyes. And even what you were saying just now, like people who are like, no, I have to. This says this, and this is this, but this could be something totally different. I'm just kind of like free now to like not worry about it, and it's
Yes,
awesome. Like it's so awesome,
it
and I'm just
is.
like my goal is just to like Richard Rohr and make the world better. Like be happy, be happy. Have you heard of Bob Goff?
Bob Goff. No,
Oh
is he connected with Richard Gore that you mentioned him
no,
just now?
no, he's just a
No.
little cute little old man that I like. Another cute old man.
What does he write about? What does he talk
he
about?
um he has a book called Love Does, and he is a lawyer from San Diego, and he lives his entire life just loving people. And he has had some amazing, amazing stories. And like he is so just so hopeful and so joyful. And I love him. I buy his book all the time and I give it away. Like it's
What is
like
the name of the book?
it's called Love
Love
Does.
does. Love does.
hmm And he
I like
actually
that.
put his phone number in the back of the book because he thought no one would ever
Wow.
read it. And he became a New York Times bestseller. And he gets phone calls like all day from prisons and stuff, and he answers the phone every single time.
Wow.
And so but he went to Uganda and like rescues
I'm
like
picking up
kids
this
out of
book.
prison. Oh, he's amazing, and he's so funny. Oh, he's amazing. I'll find a YouTube of him.
And he's still
My goal
around?
is
He's still
yeah,
around us? Yeah. Okay.
yeah. He calls his office is Tom Sawyer Island at Disneyland. So
Oh,
he
I
would
love
find a
this.
picnic table. Yeah, and so if you would go to Disneyland and he would be there, he'd always be at this picnic table writing. And so every
That's
time
so cool.
I had a season pass, and every time I would go through Tom Sawyer Island just to see if Bob was there. And never once to see there. But he's one of my dream podcast guests. I want to have him on there.
Oh,
He's just amazing.
speak it to the universe and
Yes.
let's make it happen. I think that I think I would be interested in that because I'm constantly trying to I make up mantras in my head
hmm
that'll help me sort of like navigate and deconstruct and how can I be a better person for me, for the
hmm
people around me, for my family, for my friends. Do I always succeed? Hell no. But I'm trying
Yeah.
to for my own sanity too because I realize how much anxiety tends to mess things up. It's just
Yeah.
it's so much. And actually, speaking of books, that the Russell Brand book,
hmm
it kind of introduced me to cognitive behavior therapy
hmm
in its own way. And I did speak to Jay about it, and then Jay was suggesting, I do DBT, which is dialectical.
hmm
And I looked into that. I'm like, I don't think that's so much for me. And then I found CBT, and that has been phenomenal for me.
I've done the eye thing, and it did not
Oh,
work for me.
that, yeah, yeah. It's
I
meant to
kept
kind of like bring you to the present a little bit. To
Yeah. The guy would always be like, "What did you see?" And all I'd be like, the end of your stick was like Darth Vader because it had like a little
ah,
hat, and that's
that's
every single time. Like for an hour, I'm like, "It's just Darth Vader,
that's
back and forth."
is
So
inspiring. Maybe you should maybe you should dive into that. Maybe your therapist hasn't dived deep enough. Maybe you need to dive a little bit deeper. What is going on with Darth Vader there?
yeah.
Maybe, but I'm not a therapist. Do not quote me
Yeah,
on
no,
this.
no. I'm just saying it works for some people, like awesome, and I'm like, I would like to know what that's like because it did not work for me.
Claro, claro. And I think, and every, we, and that speaks as to, the need that we have to explore new things and to find
hmm
maybe the thing that works for us. It's just
Yeah.
maybe we look for a therapist and maybe one doesn't work and
hmm
maybe we'll find another
Yeah.
one to keep on.
Yeah.
We don't need to settle.
Yeah. Totally.
We can keep on
I'm
looking.
seeing three right now.
That's
Three
wonderful.
different ones.
That's wonderful. Lucky you. I'm gonna get to see my therapist, and I've been probably a few months because I basically concluded with her, and then I was looking for another one, and it's just been a nightmare to find one. I'm like,
Yeah.
why don't I just retouch base with my old therapist? So I
Yeah.
texted her, and I was like, hey, are you still? I'm like, yeah, I'm here. Yeah, just let me know. We can have a Zoom. We can have present, whatever you want. And I'm really excited because I have many things to talk about.
Yeah,
Good
I
months,
know.
4 or 5 months worth of stuff.
I know. I know. This year's bananas.
What
But yeah.
and now to bring this conversation to a landing strip. Now we're talking about therapy. What has therapy done for you? Like, what have you found in therapy
Hmm.
that has been a thing that you might suggest for everyone to do, or
Something I've always kind of known about myself is that I'm a big people pleaser, and I will
mm,
go out of my way, and I will be completely unhappy as long as everyone else around me is happy. And something I've had to make myself do is to do things for myself as well and make time for myself. And it sounds super cheesy and super easy, but it's not sometimes.
it is not cheesy
And
at all. Yeah.
yeah, and that's made a difference in like saying no. It's okay to say no. I'd never said no before. I was like, yes, everything. And I'm like so exhausted all the time from being
Yeah.
um, like I always say, my goal is to be the glitter bomb of the world. And that's fine. But sometimes I don't want me to be the glitter bomb. And I've had to work on that because I want to be. And I don't want people to see me like not be a glitter bomb.
Yeah.
But I think when I'm more honest about that kind of stuff, I feel like it helps more people knowing that I'm not always happy because I know that's not realistic. So I don't know. It's been really good. And also just to learn to let things go that I wasn't able to before.
Mm.
So things that I didn't even know were bothering me came out. And then I'm like, oh man, this whole time I'm bugged about that. And I had no idea. And I just kind of like let it go. And it's really helping. And medication too. Everybody says medication's a no, but I've been doing that.
Yeah.
That's hopefully is going to start helping soon.
Do you in your case, and obviously without bringing any attention to detail,
Mm-hmm.
but did you were you able to find out on a deeper realm why you were pleasing people, or like what maybe that made you feel like, or is that something that hasn't? And again, I'm not trying to get into details, but
Yeah,
has that been something that you've dived into, or
I think we're still trying to figure that out. Right now, I'm just trying to be okay with it not being okay.
yeah,
And
yeah,
then,
yeah, yeah,
like, that's like my
problematizing it.
goal. Yeah. Because it's been all my life I've been this way. It's
Yeah.
weird. And I have no idea where it came from. So, yeah, I don't know. I never felt like I had to. It wasn't like I had some like demanding family life
Mm-hmm.
or something. Like, it never
Mm-hmm.
was that. So, I have no idea where it came from. It's
That's
very weird.
so interesting about us human
Yeah,
beings, that
I
some
know.
things are so interwoven with us that we don't know
Hmm.
where we stop and the other begins.
Yeah. Maybe some aliens came and scooped me up or something. I don't know.
It's highly probable, and me too. Me too. I'll have some alien testing story. They gave me this charmingness.
Yeah.
I was gifted by the life from far away. Um,
Yeah.
something I like to ask my guests as a final question is in the line
Mhm.
of the utopias, that perfect sort of like realm of reference that we overlook in the horizon, that is
Mhm.
that which we strive towards. And there's this author from Uruguay called Eduardo Galeano, and he has this story he shares of kind of like a classroom setting, trying to figure out what the hell is the point of utopia, if it's just
Mhm.
there, and as because the frustrating thing about it is that you take 5 steps towards it, and then it's like the utopia takes 5 more steps further from you,
Mhm.
and then you take 5 more steps, and it just continues this pattern. So then there was this honest reflective question of what the hell is the point, because if we're
Mhm.
not going to get to it. And then there's just this moment of pause, and then like think about it. What are you
Hmm.
doing after you take 5 steps? After you take 5 more steps, you keep on pressing forward.
Yeah.
You're pressing forward. So it's kind of to problematize this idea that we need to attain,
Mhm.
we need to grab the trophy, we need to have this success driven narrative, and
Mhm.
completely sabotage the process that we have been going through that has been
Mhm.
transformative. So for you, what are those utopias, or those reference points that allow you or that inspire you to continue going even in times of where things seem very hopeless and seem very frustrating?
Hmm.
What are those things that allow you to keep on pressing on?
Man, that's a tough question. Because there's some days where I'm just like, I have no idea. To
No,
be honest, like there's like
totally, of course.
when I met Conley, I was like, I have no idea what the heck. Like, what's the point? Like, I tell my husband like maybe 4 days a week at least that I'm like, I feel like I'm doing nothing with my life and I serve no purpose.
Huh.
Like all the time. And then like 3 of those days I'm like, no, this is what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna write my story and I'm gonna have these podcasts and I'm gonna bring joy to the world. And so I'm very like split. And so I think I just try to stay focused on, it sounds really corny, but like just being happy inside in my life, because I feel like when people are happy, that makes other people happy, even happy in hard times, because obviously nothing's ever going to be perfect. But I noticed that this past year, especially, the people I've been drawn to just have a lot of joy. And even in the midst of them not being able to tour, or like Chris Carrabba getting in a terrible motorcycle accident,
Motorcycle accident,
like,
yeah.
relearning to play guitar, and he still has a lot of joy. Or Jay, like going through his life and still having that joy, you know. And to me, that speaks a lot of volume. And so I think I strive to be that for at least one person out there.
Yeah, it's good. That's a good place to strive to be and work towards. Christy, gracias. Thank you for sharing
De
a little bit
nada.
about your story.
De nada.
It's been
I
a
don't know why I
pleasure.
did it
I've
like that.
enjoyed it. No, it's fine. It's
Can I
exactly.
tell you what my favorite Spanish word is?
Sí, dime.
El tigre.
El tigre?
Tigre.
El
I
tigre.
love that word. It makes me happy. I have no idea why.
Yeah, el tigre, the tiger. No, it is. It's a nice word to roll your tongue with.
Ojo de tigre.
Yeah, that would be the accurate Spanish translation of the eye of the tiger. Yes, yeah. I have never heard it in Spanish, so this is new for me.
My friend taught that to me.
Genial. Pues mira, thank you so much, and
thank you.
I am blessed to have you here. Really nice to hear your stories, and also put a face to the voice that is usually behind the scenes, and I consider that a big privilege. So also everyone who's came by or passed by or is here or was there, thank you. Thank you always.
Yes.
I like to express my
You up
gratitude.
there? You over there?
Sí, todos, anyone and everyone.
Yeah.
So I always like to close off with these words of a Puerto Rican astrologist. I always get this word, and it's all a matter. I should just Google it, and I haven't Googled it. I've been going 6-7 months of not knowing how to say this word. So there was a very famous known Puerto Rican, all the zodiac signs, like Pisces, Virgo, and he had this very spectacular performance, a lot of theatric to it, and he was very well renowned all over the world. He actually has a documentary on Netflix.
Cool.
Called Mucho Amor.
Okay.
And so he would close off his segments in all his grandeur with all his outfits, and he would say, Les deseo que tengan mucha paz, which means so much peace.
Aww.
Pero sobre todo and over anything else, que tengan mucho amor. So everyone, I wish that upon your lives. I wish that upon your life, Christy.
Thank you.
And be safe. Be in peace. Don't disconnect just yet, everyone. Peace. See you around the block. Ciao, ciao.